Welcome to the Whole Child Sleep podcast, where we help families nurture dreams and raise wholeness. Welcome to the Whole Child Sleep podcast. I'm your host, Maya Hartzine. Today we are addressing Jenna's question. Jenna's question is related to our topic from last week, which was navigating daylight saving time. She asks, which option would you suggest for a 7-month-old who still doesn't have a consistent schedule? Sometimes that's great. Sometimes sleeps later than 30 minutes and then needs an earlier bedtime. That is a great question, Jenna. And what I would say here is I would actually worry less about daylight saving time in this situation and put more focus on establishing a healthy rhythm for your little one. What I mean by that is when you tell me that your little one naps great some days and then some days takes a 30-minute nap, this tells me that your child's last sleep window of the day is fluctuating, which is what causes those great nap days and then those poor nap days. So when we get that last week window more consistent and more in tune with what your kiddo's body needs, that's when you will be experiencing consistent, great nap days. What I would also suggest, Jenna, is that we will want first nap to start no earlier than 8:30. But the most important thing here, Jenna, is that you establish a consistent last week window. I hope that answers your question, Jenna. Yes, shift normally as I would suggest moving first nap later first, but really focus your energy on establishing a body honoring rhythm for your kiddo. And then everything else will fall into place a lot more easily. So let me know if that's helpful, and I will talk to you all next week. Thank you for listening to the Whole Child Sleep podcast. For references to articles discussed in this podcast or for evidence on the topics that we've discussed on this podcast, please look in the description below, or you can find the articles linked in our blog at curesleep.us. I want to give you an idea of what you can expect in terms of structure of this podcast moving forward. You can expect one podcast a week, and we will cover a topic for 2 weeks. The first week, you can expect the podcast to be more educational and informational. The following week will be more of a Q&A covering the same topic. If you have a question that you would like us to answer during the Q&A podcast, please send them in at 406-551-4083. And if you've found this podcast to be helpful, we ask that you share it. We would love to reach more tired families. We also ask that you subscribe and like and give us a 5-star review. This also helps us reach more tired families. We hope you have a beautiful day, and we will talk to you next week. By listening to this podcast, you understand and agree to the following. The content of this podcast offers the opinions of Maya Hartzine and her guests, and it is not intended as medical advice. It serves as an informational purpose. For personalized and medical concerns, consult your healthcare professional. The views and opinions in this podcast are our own and don't represent our employees or affiliates. The views of the guests in this podcast are their own and do not necessarily reflect that of Cure Sleep Group. Our podcast and website are not for legal purposes, such as establishing a standard of care or expert witness testimony. We don't guarantee the accuracy of statements or opinions. We appreciate your assistance in maintaining content accuracy. If you find errors in our podcast or blogs, please reach out via email to support@curesleep.us. This podcast is owned by Cure Sleep LLC and presented by the Whole Child Sleep podcast. Thank you for tuning in.